Oh, yeah. Good afternoon. I will call this regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Jasper to order for September 19th, 2023. It is now 1:30 p.m. We have a large gallery today, which is always appreciated. Welcome to you all. Often, as we begin our proceedings, there is a land acknowledgement issued. A week ago, there was a motion that we review that policy, given some changes. So rather than reiterate wording that might soon change, I will simply acknowledge that there has been traditional use of this territory for time immemorial by various people and by various Indigenous groups, and including the Métis. And I noticed in the gallery today, one of the local members of our Métis group, and I can't see him now.
Oh, there he is.
But welcome in particular, and congratulations. I understand that the Métis in the province, now known as Otipim Issaquah Métis, and you are now a constituent of the Jasper House Métis district. And I think
keep trying.
I will keep trying. It's a work in progress, but welcome all, and in particular regards. Council, you have today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to be made to the agenda? If not, I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda as presented. Deputy Mayor Demota, thank you. All in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We have two sets of minutes for approval today, beginning with the regular meeting minutes of September 5th, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? If there are none, may I have a motion, please, to approve those minutes as presented? Councillor Wilson, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That's carried. And you have in your agenda package as well draft minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of September 12th, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Deputy Mayor Demota.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make it just a minor detail where it says that I did a traditional land acknowledgement. I did not at that meeting. I tried to be a little bit more heartfelt and describe a little bit what I had learned recently about what a land acknowledgement is. So I did my best to address that, but there is a link that when someone does click on it, it takes us to our traditional land acknowledgement, and that wasn't my intention that day, particularly because also some of the jurisdiction has changed as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Would you prefer that simply be recorded that you began with a land acknowledgement rather than traditional land acknowledgement?
Yes, please, and thank you for clarifying that.
Are there any other changes to be made to the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of September 12th? I'd have a motion then to approve the minutes with that slight adjustment to the wording. Councillor Waxer, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried.
Worship.
Councillor Melnick.
Possible for a question arising from the minutes?
I can entertain that.
Just an update on page 26 of our agenda. We have timelines and roles, and this relates back to the Committee of the Whole meeting and the presentation by Tourism Jasper regarding the box modular partnership, and some timing that was presented to us was contractor engagement and local business cash. I'm just wondering, that deadline or timing was yesterday, if administration has received any update as to how this is progressing.
Your Worship,
Go ahead.
I don't have an update on that. We have been in touch with Tourism Jasper to organize administrative working group to put together the plans. I know that they have their project manager initiated and started on the project already, and so I believe things are in the works. I don't have a specific update on their behalf about the finance side, but my understanding is that they were very confident that they're going to receive the funding that they had expected to be able to gather.
Great, thank you very much for that opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Gibbon.
Is there any other business arising? Not specifically on the agenda, but it's before us. If not, I will carry on. Agenda item 4 is correspondence. There is nothing on our agenda for consideration. I take it, Mr. Gibbon, nothing has arisen since publication of the agenda. All right, that takes us to delegations. We have joining us on the Zoom platform, Wendy Niven with the Interpretive Guides Association. I see her there waving at us. I can't tell whether you are alone or whether there are others. There were some others indicated, and I think we have, there's is it Mr. Plangger, if I can read that, Franz of the Outdoor Council of Canada, and I had one other on my agenda, but I only see 2 faces, but I see a room full of faces as well, all I think interested in this particular topic. So welcome to you both on our screen, Wendy and Franz, and if you would like to begin your presentation, go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I went to Montreal last week to visit my mom and came home with COVID. So I'm just staying away from people just to make sure I don't spread it. So yeah, thanks for having us. I just shared my screen. Can you see it there?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so hi, Jasper, councillors, town staff, and mayor. Thank you for taking the time to hear our presentation. If you don't know me, my name is Wendy Niven, and as the Jasper representative for the Interpretive Guides Association, I'm here on behalf of the Jasper guiding community. And with me is Franz Plangger, who Richard just announced. He is one of our partners in this. He's from the Outdoor Council of Canada. And our third person we were expecting who may come in, we'll see if she comes, I think she's busy doing her PhD studies, is Brooklyn Rushton, who is our other partner with the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides. So our 3 organizations have teamed up to bring you this presentation or this delegation today. And just want to say a quick thanks to all the Jasper guides who are there in the gallery that I can't see, but thank you for coming, really appreciate it. Yeah, so just to let you guys know, I'll start a little bit of a slideshow here, but I just want to point out that since the beginning, guides have really been an essential resource for newcomers to Jasper. If you see on my slide, even David Thompson had a guide. His guide was Thomas the Iroquois. Jasper's first tourist was the Earl of Southesk. He also had a guide. He was guided by Rocky Mountain Métis men. And were it not for Samson Beaver's map and her guides, Billy Warren and Sidney Unwin, Mary Schaefer would never have discovered Maligne Lake. It was Adolphus Moberly who took Arthur Coleman up the Moose River to Moose Pass. These might be 2 familiar faces to lots of people in Jasper. Fred Brewster and Curly Phillips. They set up shop here as guides in Jasper in the early 1900s, guiding early visitors to what was then Jasper Forest Park. And they cut trails and camps and established camps, and some of which are still in use to this day. Had to put a picture in here of Mona and Agnes Harrington, Jasper's very first women guides. Mountain guides have always throughout the ages or throughout time since they came, mountain guides have always been really essential to safe climbing, skiing, mountaineering in Jasper. So yeah, so even today, many important community members who lots of you probably know some of these faces, they're friends to lots of people in this room. They still earn their living guiding here in Jasper. And they offer experiences that really few people can do on their own. So guiding has always been really integral to Jasper, and it was those first guides that built the Jasper we know today. And today's guides continue to create safe, memorable connections to Jasper. But these days, the guiding community is suffering. As Jasper gets busier, Parks Canada is adapting, and they're building new strategies to ensure it remains protected while they still provide high-quality, safe visitor experiences. And one of the key strategies of this most recent management plan is to review the business licensing processes for guided recreational activities by 2025. Things are changing for this community. For the rafting community, business licensing processes have already changed without a lot of consultation. And so we really believe that to ensure a positive future of outdoor activity guiding in Jasper, the IGA, the OCC, and the ACMG need to be part of the business licensing process review. And our big challenge has been convincing park managers of that, to just provide space for our organizations at the table as they do these reviews. So that's where we're asking for your support. Today, Tourism Jasper, AMPI, the Outdoor Recreation Coalition of Alberta, and Leave No Trace Canada have all pledged support and letters of support to our cause. And we're asking the town of Jasper for the same, because we're really hoping that if we can combine our voices, we can actually be part of the solution that continues to safeguard Jasper National Park while ensuring that there are opportunities for the guiding community to thrive and visitors to make connections and enjoy this place safely. So today's guides are really no different than those very first guides of Jasper. They show newcomers and visitors the place they've come to know and love. Guides are critical for sustainable tourism, and they're a vibrant part of our community. So your letter of support asserting that the guiding community be part of the process in establishing new business rules will help us keep that community, the town, and the park strong and healthy. So thanks again for your time and consideration, and we are ready to answer your questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Niven. Councillors, questions? Councillor Keller-Grandy.
Thank you, Mayor. On to Wendy. Wendy, can you kind of explain how the process has changed? I understand the paperwork and everything that has come through that's been proposed for 2025, and even in the last year, like the paperwork has probably tripled that businesses have to do. Can you explain like how guides got their license in the past and what they're looking to do different?
The biggest thing that's come to our attention is a move from a yearly business license to a license of occupation. And that's the big change that I referred to with the rafting community. And I believe it's on the books for the ice walks, Moline Canyon ice walks as well. I'm not super familiar with the business licensing process for Parks Canada, not being a business myself. I'm wondering if maybe somebody in the gallery, maybe Kirsten, I know Kirsten's there, might be able to answer that question. I'm not sure who else is there, but I feel like that's why we really wanted our guiding community to come in and answer those questions. But it sounds, Helen, like you've got some experience of it becoming a little bit more onerous for yourself. And I guess quickly from the IGA's point of view, we've also had to, even for running our group management courses, so that's the certification that the hiking guides get to be able to take visitor guides safely. We're jumping through a lot of hoops to get business licenses in place just to run those 1 or 2 courses that we do every year. So we're seeing a little bit more onerous, but I'm wondering if the Jasper guides who are there have any thoughts on that or have any insight.
There is a microphone if you wouldn't mind walking to it. Thank you.
Got 9 of them here, Wendy.
Okay, you can hear me okay? Okay. So I would say that the business licenses right now are not more onerous to go through. There's not more paperwork, but it's what happened was that we just heard through rumor that they were going to change that we were no longer going to have guiding licenses, that it would become a license of occupation. We don't even really understand what that is, what that means to have a license of occupation. So we actually asked Parks Canada to have all these associations who have been really instrumental in making sure the standards are really high in guiding, and to include us just at the table before they start making these changes. So that was what sort of precipitated the first meeting, that we actually had to really dig in to ask them to just listen to us. And so it's not so much that right now our licensing paperwork is so difficult, it's what's coming down the pipes. And a license of occupation would mean that we'd be restricted. Well, we're not even sure. We'd be restricted possibly to certain trails. One group, maybe one guiding group might just be able to guide Edith Cavell, where all the other groups might not be able to, and it would involve more expense. And we're not even sure what the process is, but all we're asking is that they maybe consult us or talk to us before they make these big changes.
Don't run away. Thank you for that, Kristen. Wendy, for your edification, there is now another gentleman taking the hot seat.
Hi, so my name is Christian Roy. I'm with Canadian Skyline Adventures, and we've operated as a hiking and backpacking company for 11 years now. I have a business partner. She's out on the skyline right now. And so from what I've heard, the license of occupation would mean that we would have to reapply for our license, and other potential businesses could get our license. So whether they make this a 3-year occupation or 5-year, that they haven't really discussed what the term would be. But it kind of means that we could lose our business after maybe 5 years of operation, which can be difficult when you've invested money in your business and time in your building up your clientele, and then all of a sudden Parks decide, well, these people did a better application and they get to have your business. So that is sort of what those things are. And they've also discussed of having, of course, if you're on a business of occupation license, you also have to pay a certain percentage of your income, which we're already, kind of not making a whole bunch of money. So if you have to pay 4% of your entire revenue, well, then that is a lot. And that's what they have done to the rafting companies. At first, those rafting company license of occupations were really short, and they realized that that wasn't really a good way to do it. So they have lengthened that time, at least. That's one good thing. But yeah, so for us, there's a lot of unknown, things that are going to happen. I certainly hope that they will actually give the license to the people who already have them, at least the first go around of these cycles of application. But then after that, we don't know. So it is a lot of unknown for us as business owners in Jasper. We've been paying our dues and paying all our, licenses and everything. But then we come to this application, which will change things a lot, make it very difficult for us to keep operating with confidence. Imagine if you go and apply for a bank loan to try to have a house here in Jasper or a condo, and you tell them, well, I have a license, but only for 3 years. After that, I don't know if I have a business anymore. So it does cause a lot of unknown for us. That's as much as I can kind of explain about that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that explanation. Are there other questions from councillors? Councillor Melvin.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Perhaps Wendy, or if you would prefer to answer this question, typically, how far in advance are bookings made for the various tour operations? Are we a 3-month booking window or a 1-year booking window? And the reason I'm going down this path is that operators need to have some certainty in their licensing, especially if you're doing marketing and you're booking a year ahead for things like the Skyline Trail, which is very difficult to get on. So if I could have some clarity as to how long in the future you're accepting bookings.
That was definitely one thing that they seem to be starting to rectify, because at first they were going to go in the fall, you would put in your application, and then for the next summer, like they would give you the answer by about December, and then for the next summer you would be operating, which didn't make any sense at all. But I think that they have, for parks, rectified that difficulty. So I don't know what the timeline is going to be for these applications, but for us, definitely, we have already requests for next year. We have probably 10, 12 requests for either backpacking or other activities like that. So if people do have to plan way ahead of time because of their time off or the availability for hotels and all that. And so definitely about 1 year ahead. But then, of course, we get some that are shorter and shorter time frame, like much sooner. I actually had a request for somebody who wants to go backpacking next week. And of course, we can't fit that in our schedule. It's too quick, but yeah.
And thank you for that, because it does reconfirm, coming to Jasper is with the limited hotels, you do have to plan a year in advance. And so individuals taking advantage of the various other touring opportunities will probably only book those when they have a hotel room that they know that they're going to get into, especially during the peak summer period.
Yeah, definitely. It's a thing to coordinate everything. And for us as well, for backpacking, we also have to book the campsites at the same time as the general public, which is also a bit of a challenge, but we've made that work. But
Thank you for that. Mr. Plangger, I see you've got your virtual hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me properly?
Indeed, we can.
Okay, perfect. Well, yes, indeed. In regards to timelines, there are even some operators that book 3 years, up to 3 years ahead of time, especially when working with international markets and travel agencies. And in regard to the first question, in the change that's coming, it's really, again, that permitting, moving from yearly permits to a license of occupation model, which in our meeting with the Jasper Field Unit in February, it was mentioned that this directive is coming from the Ministry of Justice itself. So the park is moving in that direction, and our intent is not to move against that direction. And the direction, the license of occupation, so here's a template. It is a much stronger and beefier process, and it is an agreement with the King and a much more intense administrative effort on the part of operator. But our intent here is to work with the park to develop the how the license of occupation are designed, the requirements and whatnot, so it aligns with the industry so that it can be a win-win situation. And that is why your support letter will be really helpful in being able to open the door even further in talking to parks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Waxer.
This is not a question, but just a comment that I found the presentation to be very articulate and thoughtful, and I appreciate that very much. And also that the presence of guides in our community is partly what makes us a mountain community, and I think it is something very important to be preserved.
Deputy Mayor Demota.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I think that, our local guides and guides in any mountain park are purest ambassadors, or some of our purest ambassadors, and make up, a very important fabric of that collective us when we're representing the park in general. And I think it's a great asset to the National Park System of Canada. I hope that when people come and visit here and they get to experience our local guides, leave with a little bit more stewardship in their own backyards and at work. So to me, I think that even just a letter of support, you know, isn't enough. I think we should pursue some other level of advocacy using, you know, our political connections to at least advocate and support these initiatives. And I like the approach of like holding hands to make this better and improve the process. Because I mean, when you look at it from a business model perspective, you know, when you go and build something, you put capital in it, and then you even try to build up some goodwill. There's nothing to sell at the end of it if all of a sudden your time's up and somebody else gets introduced and says, well, go have at it. And that doesn't even promote any desire to include quality of service in there, because if you're not going to have anything at the end of it, why invest, right? Never mind your own time and your skill. You don't just get a guide's license either personally just by going to pay a fee. Like, you have to go through a process and you have to really understand and buy into what's going on. So I think, to me, I'm totally in support of this. And again, I know it's self-serving because of, you know, some of our business relations in the community, but I think we need to advocate at a higher level with the same type of integrity in supporting the change, but making it beneficial for those that are investing. Thank you.
In the absence of other hands, I do have a question, but and I will get to it. But I want to go on record first. I have, in preparation for today's meeting, considered my personal position in all of this, because I have a brother who is an outfitter, and I presume indirectly impacted by this as well, though I haven't spoken to him about that. And I've considered the legislation, I've considered our own code of conduct bylaw, and I have determined that I am not in conflict. There is not a pecuniary interest. And in fact, by definition, my brother is not my family according to the law. Family includes spouses, parents, and children, but not siblings. So, but in the interest of disclosure, I recognize that I have a relative who is engaged in similar pursuits and could be impacted. And so I leave that out. And if anybody thinks I am in conflict, they are certainly entitled to let me know that. But I will say that I consider that I am not. My question, though, my specific question to you, I presume, Wendy, or to anyone that can answer it, is I am perplexed that you need to be here. It would have seemed to me somewhat self-evident that these entities, the three that you recognize, the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides, the Interpretive Guides Association, and the Outdoor Council of Canada, might have been invited to the table already. And I did think that I heard in one response that you had had a preliminary meeting. And so is the issue that you have been told that you are excluded, or just not yet invited? And I'm thinking in terms of the tone of the letter that might be sent. Is it just a bit of a nudge and some encouragement to take what seems to be a fairly apparent path, or has in fact there been an objection raised to consultation with the three groups that are identified? Go ahead, Franz.
So it's much more on the side of the nudge. And there's been no formal objection. Concurrently, what is happening in all over the country, but particularly in the Eastern Rockies, is that there's exclusion by omission So, there are deadlines that are put in place. There are months of silence. The last official message we received a few months ago, so after the February consultation, where our 3 organizations came to the meeting and multiple guides, was thank you and stand by. And we have seen this thank you and stand by in other areas of the country turn into decisions being made without consultation. So we're wanting to be proactive. We're wanting to engage with interested stakeholders and showcase that this is more than just an issue for individual guides, but it's actually a community issue. That there are multiple stakeholders that are important to the conversation and desire to see a win-win situation. There's not a single guide in Jasper that wants the park to suffer. We all care about the park, and we all want people to have amazing experience in the park. And by working together, we want that to see that happen. So it's really much more this approach. We're not assigning ill intent on the park. We realize that they have limited resources and they have to make priorities. So we're coming back to their door and saying, we believe it's important that you make us a priority. And that's really the approach that we're taking. As a last little piece that I want to mention, I'm sure you're going to have a fun Thanksgiving dinner conversation with your brother to talk about what's family and what's not.
All right, thank you for that. I asked the question because I am concerned about our relationship as a council with Parks Canada. I'm concerned, though, of course, about your relationship with Parks Canada as well. We do have a unique system of governance here where our governance authority is limited to a geographical area, which is only a very small part of the park, and we are specifically excluded from trying to assert any authority outside that. However, I see before me a room full of residents who have come to their council asking for some assistance, and to the extent that we are not dealing with the merits of the arguments that you will make or the outcomes, but only with process, and that is a process that allows you at the table. I am certainly supportive of the request. We've yet to have a motion. I'm going to suggest, though, before a motion comes, that it should be more than what is presented to us. That is, the council received the presentation for information. I think that if a councillor is prepared to make a motion, it should be to receive the presentation for information and to provide a letter of support as requested, just to close it off. But I hear what you're saying, and it just seems self-evident. And I think I appreciate your response, Franz, that this is not a hard no that you've received, but it is a process of potential exclusion or omission, it might be a better word, and you want to safeguard against that, and I can understand your concerns. So I'm certainly in favor of a letter of support. Deputy Mayor Demota.
Yeah, I've got my pen up. That's a signal to you. Just because you brought up pecuniary interests, because I am a shareholder in a local guiding company that has license of occupation currently, regardless if I remove myself from the conversation or not, I'm a councillor on our community council, and if we write a letter of support, whether I'm in it or not, it's still on behalf of council. So if there's a letter of support, am I in conflict? And I'm just throwing this out there because I don't see at this point right now any financial gain by supporting something that I'm deeply fond of, I guess. So I'm kind of battling with that because you brought it up now, and you might be once removed from it, but I'm directly in conflict if that is the conversation. And I think Kathleen might have the same issue with
my apologies to members of the gallery and our delegates online for this digression. A declaration of a conflict of interest rests on the councillor who considers themselves in conflict. But to assist Deputy Mayor Demota, I would observe that there is a specific exemption under section 170, I think it is, of the Municipal Government Act, which defines pecuniary interest. And if it is business related, if the issue under discussion is something that affects all businesses, it is not a conflict. If it was to affect only your business, then it would be. But this, as we can see, affects very many businesses. So I would think if I was in your shoes, it would be like being in my shoes. There's not, in fact, a conflict.
Does that mean I'm invited to Thanksgiving at your place? I think Councillor Waxer had a question too.
I too, on a point of order, would have to declare that my husband Warren is a member of the Interpretive Guides Association, but does not have a business of his own, but works with some of the for some of the organizations in the room.
Thank you for that. Mr. Yeri, did your hand go up earlier?
It did, but you already answered it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Max.
Yeah.
Yes, you may.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Max Dara, and I'm a business owner here. I own Rockwood Mountain Adventures. We've been in business for 14 years locally here. And as there's no representative of the ACMG, the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides, I figured I should just say something. I'm a mountain guide with that association, have been for quite a while, and it's been a great opportunity to guide and operate a business like this in Jasper. We hold a license of occupation in the Columbia Icefield area, one of 3 companies, Pursuit and Ice Walks being the other 2. And I just think it's important to acknowledge that it's not the license of occupation, personally, that there's any problem with. It's actually been quite a beneficial setup for us operating in the Columbia Icefield area. Traditionally, within the ACMG and mountain guides, we'd be limited on where we could go based on our scope of practice and our terrain guidelines. Currently, we have to identify the particular specific areas that we operate in. So traditionally, this would be a $65 permit that we would buy under the ACMG group license, which granted us blanket access to all the national parks. And so within the ACMG, this has created quite a bit of discord because it's a lot of process for individual guides. So there are advantages to the license of occupation process. And I think Jasper National Park has done quite a good job, at least in the ACMG and the mountain guiding business world, to help kind of lead the charge across the other national parks and with the ACMG. I think they're trying to figure it out. And I think just it's important to just mention that for me, it's important to be included in that process and to help them develop it. And the people locally that I've worked with in this license of occupation process, in the small area of expertise that we operate in, have been great to deal with. And if they can extend that to the other businesses and the other forms of guiding, that would be excellent. But the actual license of occupation, from my perspective, has been a good thing for our business. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dara. I look to Councillor Wilson.
Oh, well, thank you everybody for attending, and thank you, Wendy, for the great, Mrs. Niven for the great presentation. I would just like to make a motion that council receive the presentation for information, and also and also provide a letter of support to the Interpretive Guides Association as requested.
Thank you for that motion. Councillor Wilson, is there any debate on the motion? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And so you have full success. Council has accepted the presentation and directed that we issue a letter of support. I can speak to you, Ms. Niven, about the address for that. I think you've received some letters of support already. So I can use that address, I presume, and provide that to you for your use, and hopefully that will assist all of you in getting to the table for these important discussions. So thanks again for your presentation and thank you all for joining us in the forum room. What else to do on a chilly Tuesday in September?
Yes, there's a bunch of cancellations. I just wanted to say, I forgot to say that, I wanted to say that I really appreciated the presentation and some of the photos that were shared there. And just the quality and conciseness of the message and getting it delivered. And I wish more presentations were like that. No offense to, previous presentations, but if other people are watching and they want to come to council, it was very well put forward. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your support and thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thank you both on screen and thank you all again in the gallery.
And thanks to everyone for coming. Thank you.
Stay better.
Time to get it.
You don't have to leave.
Yeah, the fun stuff's just starting. We saw Rico reaching for the scotch, but that could happen.
Well, that's why you have ceramic ones.
Bye.
Bye, Wendy. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, that takes us to agenda item 6, new business. 6.1 is the wastewater treatment facilities borrowing bylaw. We have in our agenda package confirmation of certification of the bylaw by Parks Canada following second reading. Here for third reading. Do I have a motion from a councillor? Councillor Melnick?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council give third reading to bylaw 255, the wastewater treatment facility borrowing bylaw 2023.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Melnick. Is there any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Agenda item 6.2 is similar, relates to the Jasper Recreation Complex renovation phase 2 borrowing bylaw 2023. Again, the agenda contains certification of the bylaw following second reading by Parks Canada. So here for us for third reading today. Is there a councillor prepared to make that motion? Councillor Keller-Granby?
The council approved sorry about that. The council gave third reading to bylaw 256, the Jasper Recreation Complex renovation phase 2 borrowing bylaw 2023.
Is there any debate on that motion? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That was carried. Agenda item 6.3, 2022 year-end surplus reserve transfers. There's nothing specific in the agenda. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Moda.
Yes, I guess there's two recommendations there, and I think it's okay to vote them separately or together. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that for budgetary sake coming up with our decisions for 2024, that we have a little bit more of a definitive distinction on the utility supported surplus and what came from operation on the we're not at 6.2, so 6.2B kind of. So that when we're putting reserves to the utility operating reserves, but some of that came from capital and connection as well as consumption, right? So I think a differentiation, and I'm sorry for the extra work, but if we need to, I think there might be some incentive to provide some relief for next year. If there's that opportunity, I wanted to know how much came from consumption so that we can, or from the other two, just so that we can make some better decisions going forward. And I wasn't asking for that today because the whole thing is going into a reserve, so we don't need to know the specifics today, but just for the future. I don't mind supporting this, and I can pass I can put forward the motion with council if there's the desire to do this in one motion. I can do that now, unless you want to separate.
Councillor Melvin?
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, and to Deputy Mayor Demota. I think the question came up, the last year's year-end utility surplus was from savings and additional revenue. But I too have the question to clarify that the operating surplus did not include the capital component of the utility charges. This is savings from maybe less snow removal.
Right.
But not the capital portion. And I think you referenced capital in your preamble. And I think we just want to make sure we're clear that if I'm incorrect, I stand corrected, but capital is not part of this surplus.
Right, sorry, and I apologize for that if I may, your worship, because I was just in my head, I had water utilities solely, and I think the administration picked up on that and just were giving me a friendly nod because I was veering off course there, and I do understand the differentiation, and I think you're right, and I'm kind of echoing what you're saying, so thank you. All right, okay, so our director of finance is nodding her head and understands what other things don't, like, great, grateful for that. So I'm ready to move that council approves that the 2022 year-end tax supported surplus of $147,544 be allocated to reserves as per policy B-112 in the following amounts: $73,772, 50%, to fixed assets reserve, $14,754, 10%, to community housing reserve, and $59,017, which is 40%, to the financial stabilization reserve. And as Mr. Gibbon would say, and the council approve that the 2022 year-end utility supported surplus of $534,685 be allocated to reserves as per policy B-112 in the following amount: $534,685, 100% to the utility operating reserve.
Thank you for that double-barreled motion, as it is. And to go back to your initial comment, is there any councillor who might wish to divide the question? That is, if you wanted to vote in opposite ways, in favor of one and against the other, you might want to call for separation, but if not, I'm happy to call them both together, but that does not mean that you're required to have a single answer for both. So if there is no call for providing the question, I will simply call the question and it will apply to both, but I'm open to separating them. I see no one indicating they need separation, so I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That motion in both its parts is carried. That takes us to agenda item 6.4, S Block Parking 2023 Winter Seasonal Service. This was a matter that was before us at Committee of the Whole, and so the material is on that agenda, not on today's agenda. If anybody needs a moment to go back to last week's agenda if they have questions. Just take the time to do that. Deputy Mayor Demota?
While others are waiting, I know that several councillors in the past and currently have exercised or expressed a desire to maximize our potential revenues in certain areas, and this is one, and I appreciate the effort. You know, we might not get it right every time, but it's good to test the waters on certain things, and I think we're better served by trying and not trying at all. So I support this recommendation, and I'd like to see it in motion.
I appreciate that the recommendation is direct from last week's committee of the whole. And it probably doesn't really change anything, but I might suggest as a friendly amendment that it come back to committee of the whole meeting in the spring of 2024.
I didn't make a motion, so if for whomever does, then they could do that. I would just don't want to hog all the motions today, so it's just kind of promoting it. No, that's fine.
If there is not yet a motion, might there be a motion? Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a good discussion at the last committee of the whole, and seeing that there is no further discussion on this particular item, I would make the motion that council approve the winter seasonal service pilot project proposal for the 2023-24 season for S Block parking lot, with a report to come back to a committee of the whole meeting in the spring of 2024. And just to be clear for the public, this seasonal project, pilot project, it is intended to run from November 1st until April 30th. So the earliest we'll see this is in May or June of next year.
Thank you for that, Councillor Melnick. Is there any debate on the motion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Agenda item 6.5. Recreation facility access policy. Again, here, by way of recommendation from committee. We have now, a slightly revised form of the proposed access policy, some slight wording changes as discussed a week ago. So it is as presented today rather than as presented last week. Are there any further questions, comments, concerns about the policy as it is presented today? Seeing nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Waxer, I couldn't see your hand behind there.
It wasn't a question. I was just ready to make the motion.
I was going to make one comment under Part 4 standards in the highlighted area. So we discussed some changes last week. Are subject to any rules in place. I would prefer in legislative language to not have around conduct and behavior regarding or some other word. I hear people use that word often, but any rules in place around conduct, I don't know really what that means, but any rules in place regarding conduct and behavior in municipal facilities is what we intend to say. It's again, I appreciate I get carried away with this stuff, but Words matter, I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor.
So you're suggesting that if someone was to make a motion to accept this, or the council adopt the policy, it would be as amended and not use the word around, and any rules in place regarding conduct and behavior. So just changing out. Okay.
Councillor Waxer.
Just a question, if perhaps the word around came from the desire to use plain language, if in a policy that would affect local people. Just curious.
Your worship, it may have, and I think we're sort of seeing limitations and have over the last couple of times we brought policies forward where the precision required in the council policy may be greater than it allows for, that you can provide for in simple, plain language at the lowest and most easily acceptable sort of level. I think the job of the administration is to ensure that any rules that we have in place with respect to conduct and behavior in municipal facilities or regarding conduct or any of those terms, that those rules are in plain language and easily understood by everybody. I think in a council policy, I appreciate what the mayor is saying here is that, we need to be a bit more precise. And so I think the suggestion of changing the word around and replacing it with regarding probably makes good sense and won't impact the ability of the general public to understand, because I would be willing to bet that the general public isn't reading council policies. It's up to us to inform them of what those policies say, and we'll use plain language when we do that.
It's pretty plain. Go ahead, Councillor Waxer.
Okay, to make the motion now that council adopts D117, the recreation facility access policy, as amended, replacing the word around with regarding in section 4.
Thank you for the clarity of that motion. Councillor Waxer, any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. There are no notices of motion before us today, so that disposes of agenda item 7. Councillor reports, agenda number 8. We have reports from councillors. Councillor Callahan.
Last Friday, I attended the Trans Canada Yellowhead Highway Association meeting. One of the topics was tourism and promoting tourism along the Yellowhead. It was really interesting. We had representatives there from Indigenous tourism, and they were saying that the federal government is really promoting tourism as one of the new economic drivers within Canada. However, not a lot of grant funding for the promotion. So I think it's going to be really interesting to go to the TIA meeting next Monday in Calgary and see what news we hear there.
Thank you for that. Other reports? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Island. Last Wednesday, I attended the early childhood and school age community conversation, which was well attended. It was the first one back for the season. They had, I like to always talk about the great things they do, which are many incredible summer programming for their youth evenings. At one point, the biggest attendance they had was 83. So that I feel was with 2 teen workers. It was by outside. they had a lot going on this summer with lots of sponsors. I really wanted to publicly acknowledge the TD Bank, the Rotary Club, Aquaterra, and the Physio Clinic for sponsoring a lot of the events. School age activities were huge numbers as well, up to 40 at some points, and also the art in the park for the early childhood age would be attended by 40 plus, which was amazing. There is 4 on the wait list for out of school care, so it's not as much as the daycare wait list, but there still is youth waiting to get onto that list. I'll let Kathleen finish if she has anything else, because she was there as well, but I also attended the library board meeting that evening, and kind of for the first time they've had long-term staff that they haven't been switching over, so they seem pretty good up there, and they're even talking about extending their hours of operation.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hall. Other reports?
Oh, I guess I would just add, I also attended the community conversations for early childhood as well, and children and youth, as well as the seniors community conversation. And again, the item of programming and the need for programming and the response to programming is unprecedented. So I thought that was interesting. And that there was also discussion around the wait list for both out of school care and daycare, and how that creates some real bottlenecks and challenges for young families.
Thank you for that, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Demota.
Okay, I'm going, Councillor Malik and I attended the Community Futures West Yellowhead Board of Directors meetings on Thursday, September 14th. And some of the things we covered were action items from our loan portfolio, Lemonade Day, the successes there, and we're looking forward to enhancing and improving that for the next year. It's been getting better, even when it rains. And there was just a general discussion about finances and our budget, and just to give council a heads up again that Community Futures is going to be coming forward with at least a $10,000 ask for its annual contribution from municipalities, and there seemed to be a general consensus that that's the most helpful process to the endeavor, as opposed to Community Futures coming in and asking several times throughout the year for different initiatives, but that will be broken down. So to keep things brief, that's all that I have to report on that particular meeting, unless Councillor Malik remembers something that we should address. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Malik.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just report on the Jasper Yellowhead Historical Society monthly meeting we had last Tuesday. The society is working towards a plan to be able to get a structure to be able to display the wildlife collection that was received from the Shermans. And I believe on the evening of the dinner at the activity center during the homecoming, there were some plans revealed for that for those who were in attendance.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you for that. I will report, I hope briefly, and not all related to boards and committees, but just activities. In my role, last Thursday and Friday, I joined Tourism Jasper and some videographers. They had conscripted to do some targeted marketing. You can imagine that target market is an older demographic, hence they asked my wife and I to be part of that. But I will say we visited locations around the park, and the weather was absolutely spectacular on Thursday and Friday. So hopefully, despite the actors in the movie, it will turn out pretty well. We won't see it until sometime in 2024. Friday, I was invited to speak at a Cultural Days event here in this building for JAG called The Art of Jasper. Very well attended on both levels of JAG in the gallery, recognizing or at least featuring 5 artists. One sort of a painter, sculptor, a musician, a chef, a wine, was right, not quite a sommelier, but a wine tasting, the local theater company as well. So it I think went well, good representation in this particular venue, supporting art and culture. I attended Saturday night here briefly in this room. There was another focused event for Culture Days focused on cowboy culture in the community, which was also well attended. Monday, Councillor Waxer, Councillor Melnick, and I attended an emergency advisory committee meeting. And although the work is not yet entirely completed, we were able on that occasion to approve an emergency PET plan, which is part of the requirements for our overall emergency plan. And so residents can have the comfort of knowing that for those pets, there is a plan in place to deal with pets in the event of emergency. Really an extensive document, more than you might imagine at first, but all very necessary. And so the final wording will come out, and that will be communicated in time. But the community should know that has happened. Yesterday also, I attended, and I assume others had been invited, the opening of the newly named restaurant at Pyramid Lake Resort. That was a pleasant opportunity just to socialize with members of the business sector. And then last evening, Councillor Waxer and I attended the Jasper Community Team Society meeting. And just for public information to that of council, we are now going to be 2 members short on the society board. So if you know anybody who might be interested in applying to sit as a director on the Jasper Community Team Society, get that word out. There will be advertisements going out formally, but spreading the word is also very useful. And I think that is it for my reports. Deputy Mayor Demota.
Thank you for reminding me something. And this might be helpful to administration as well. If somebody came up to me and said that they have a book for council and administration to read. So I don't know if it's a challenge for us, but at the same time, if you're interested, the book is called Fire Weather, and it's the story around all the things that went wrong in Fort McMurray and stuff. And the person that was giving me the information, said, are we really prepared? And I said, I hope so. Like, we trust in the higher powers and people that are communicating that we are. And, that person made note that, the people in Fort Mac, knew that they had access to some equipment. And I haven't read the story yet, but they borrowed some from Slave Lake because they had previously gone through that, and they had a couple of trailers. But then when I got out there, no one knew how to use it. So I went, well, that's going to be interesting, and that's going to entice me to delve into the book. So he said he's gonna bring it forward to us to pass around throughout the winter time and, you know, maybe just invoke some interest if people wanted to purchase that or, you know, inquire on themselves beforehand. So I just thought I'd let you know. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Demota. If there are no further councillor reports, we have a list of upcoming events, including canceled events, so a not upcoming event. I won't read the entire list. Is there anything, though, that any councillor is aware of that is not on the list and ought to be brought to the attention of council? Councillor Melnick?
Thank you, Your Worship. We do have the dark skies noted here from the 13th until the 22nd. There is actually an event that precedes that. It's also part of the Dark Sky Festival on the 12th. And that is an evening with Mark Garneau at the Forest Park. Tickets are going quickly, so I encourage individuals to get their tickets sooner rather than later.
Thank you for that, Councillor Melnick. If there is nothing other, we come to agenda item 10, which is an in-camera session, and that within camera is a matter of intergovernmental affairs. I think I can safely say that when we re-emerge from the in-camera session, we will simply go to adjournment. There will be no motion and no debate arising from anything from our in-camera session. So for those people who have been watching on our Zoom platform today, I thank you for your attendance. We will shortly be moving in camera and unlikely to be back. So you are mercifully relieved for the rest of your day from the rest of this, and council will continue for a brief time in camera, subject to a motion that we in fact move in camera at 2:41. Councillor Wilson, thank you for that. All those in favor? There are none opposed. We are in camera.
In camera.